Today in history, at 6 July 1917, Arab and British forces captured the port of Aqaba, the Turkish garrison surrendering without a conventional fight. The victory had been achieved not from the sea, where the British Navy had tried and failed, but from the desert, in a raid led by a young British intelligence officer named T.E. Lawrence, working alongside the Arab leader Auda Abu Tayi. It was the campaign's most dramatic moment, and it would establish Lawrence as one of the war's most celebrated figures. Thomas Edward Lawrence arrived in Arabia in 1916 as a junior British intelligence officer with a knowledge of Arabic and a fascination with Arab culture that had developed during years of archaeological fieldwork in the region. The context he entered was one of British strategic calculation. The Arab Revolt, launched in June 1916 by Sharif Hussein of Mecca against Ottoman rule, was a useful instrument for the British. It opened a second front, tied down Ottoman troops, threatened supply lines, and promised to fracture the empire from within. Britain promised Hussein, in deliberately vague terms, a unified Arab state after the war. Lawrence became the British liaison officer to the Arab forces of Emir Faisal, Hussein's son. His role was to advise, coordinate, and supply. What he found was a tribal fighting force that operated on entirely different principles from European armies: mobile, dispersed, capable of striking and vanishing, impossible to hold in fixed positions for extended periods. Lawrence recognized that these were not defects to be corrected, but advantages to be exploited. The Ottoman army, stretched thin across vast desert distances, could not be everywhere. An enemy that refused to hold territory and could strike anywhere was more dangerous than a conventional force that defended fixed positions. The strategy Lawrence developed was one of economic warfare waged through mobility. Rather than capturing and holding ground, the Arab forces would attack the Hejaz Railway, the Ottoman supply line running south from Damascus, repeatedly enough to keep it constantly damaged, but never so thoroughly that the Ottomans would abandon it in favor of a different supply route. Repairing the line kept Ottoman engineers and troops busy. The constant threat of attack forced them to disperse their forces along hundreds of miles of track. The capture of Aqaba in July 1917 demonstrated what the strategy could achieve. The port was defended on its seaward side. Its garrison was oriented towards the sea, anticipating a naval attack. Lawrence and Auda led a 50-man raiding force not from the sea, but from 600 miles of desert, appearing from the north, where no attack was expected. The Ottoman garrison, outnumbered and outmaneuvered, surrendered after brief fighting. Aqaba gave the Arab forces a port through which British supplies and reinforcements could flow directly into the campaign. The remaining months of the campaign were a coordinated effort. General Edmund Allenby commanded the main British forces advancing through Palestine. The Arab irregular forces under Lawrence and Faisal operated on Allenby's eastern flank, raiding and disrupting, preventing the Ottomans from concentrating their forces against the main British advance. In October 1917, Allenby captured Gaza and pushed into Palestine. By December, Jerusalem had fallen. In October 1918, Damascus was taken, the Arab forces entering the city alongside the British. Lawrence himself had become a legendary figure during the campaign. His ability to survive in desert conditions, to move with Arab forces over vast distances, to operate without formal military support, generated coverage in the British press. The American journalist Lowell Thomas filmed and photographed him during the campaign. After the war, Thomas's lecture tour turned Lawrence into an international celebrity, Lawrence of Arabia, a figure that mixed genuine courage with considerable mythologization. The political aftermath was a betrayal of the promises made during the campaign. The Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916, kept secret from the Arab leaders, had already divided the Middle East between Britain and France. When the war ended, the Arab unified state that Hussein had been promised did not materialize. The French expelled Faisal from Damascus in 1920. Britain drew borders through the desert that had no relationship to the tribal or ethnic realities of the region. Lawrence, aware of what had been promised and what had been delivered, spent the rest of his life wrestling with his role in convincing Arab leaders to fight for guarantees that were not honored. He died in a motorcycle accident in Dorset in 1935, aged 46. He had enlisted in the RAF under a false name, trying to escape the celebrity that Lowell Thomas's lectures had built around him. The Arab Revolt and Lawrence's role in it established principles of irregular warfare, mobility over mass, disruption over occupation, economics over battle, that influenced military thinking throughout the 20th century. The campaign in Arabia demonstrated what a small, mobile force could achieve against a large, conventional army defending fixed positions. The lesson was applied in subsequent conflicts in ways that Lawrence himself, watching the betrayal of those he had fought with, might have found deeply ambiguous.